Mauricio Pochettino faces an uncertain future. If we get knocked out tomorrow against Leeds United and we are out of the FA Cup, we could finally be saying goodbye to Pochettino. With the pressure escalating around his job security, it's only natural that a club like us are looking at alternatives to Mauricio Pochettino, and the latest reports state that Ruben Amorim of Sporting Lisbon is a key target being looked at by this football club. So in today's video, my friends, I'm here to break down and discuss who exactly Amorim is. My friends, hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video, and if you'd like to see more of these videos, share your thoughts and opinions. And getting straight into the video. Over the years, I've made a ton of videos like this where I discuss and highlight what each new potential manager could bring to this football club if they're hired. And I think for all of us, each new managerial hire brings newfound optimism, and we all think to ourselves, could this guy finally be the guy to push this club forward? If we go back to Sarri's spell, he had an incredible time at Napoli, but as we know, he needs at least 2 years minimum for his ideas to come to life. We had no patience and he left us. We then hired Frank Lampard, and Frank Lampard showed that he can get this young, inexperienced team competing on all fronts. He can get them scoring goals, but we did not support Frank Lampard by hiring the right personnel in the team to take his ideas forward. Then Thomas Tuchel arrived, and currently he found the best possible balance to make us compete instantly. However, it was based on short-term needs. Tuchel didn't get the right players he necessarily needed to elevate his ideas, and when that time did come, we can admit that the club structures did not exist at that time to push his ideas forward. That then follows Graham Potter, a project hire that in hindsight was at the complete mercy of a disorganized institution, and that was seen with the bloated squad he had to work with, and it's no surprise that none of his ideas came to life throughout that season. And it's now ended up currently with Mauricio Pochettino, someone that we believe in the summer could find the right balance, that was the right responsible hire to make, that was currently falling victim to poor tactical reactions based on the injuries that he's been dealt with. And he wasn't necessarily helped in the summer because the club did not sign those 3 to 4 experienced buys he was hoping to add to his team. What I'm saying is, this club does not have a great history when it comes to showing managers at their absolute best. All the expectations never amount to the full potential once promised by these managers. Yes, a manager with the right ideas is definitely a crucial aspect, but the other crucial aspect is that he does get the full support and backing from this football club. We can't forget that currently, we are seeing Ruben Amorim at his peak capacity. He's been at Sporting Lisbon now for nearly 4 years. He's been allowed that time to grow his ideas, to evolve, to improve as a manager. And I guess it's about how quickly can Amorim or any potential manager bring about a positive trajectory fast. That is the £1 billion question we're still looking to find the answers to. But my friends, let's deep dive into understanding what Amorim is actually about. Going through his history quickly, Amorim is the 3rd most expensive managerial purchase of all time. He spent barely any time at Braga, but within that time, he had an incredible record of 10 wins out of 13, and he got Braga into a cup final. Based on that incredible end to the season, that forced Sporting Lisbon to react, which meant that they coughed up around €10 million to buy Amorim, whose actual release clause at the time was €20 million. The following season, he won the league title with Sporting Lisbon for the first time in 19 years, and he brought about this instant success based on a multitude of reasons, based on how he used youth, based on how he developed players, based on his holistic ideas as a manager. He's one of those guys where he will never blame the referee for anything because he believes that his team control their destiny on the field, and his football reflects that. Constantly looks to self-improve, that wants to keep adapting and evolving, meaning that he never stays static. In my opinion, I feel like it's too easy to get lost in all the talks of formations, tactics, and oftentimes these talks dominate the other important aspects that managers must also have. And for myself, they include things like his personality, his game management, how he works with the team to improve them, his vision, and most importantly, his problem solving during a season. And I think that Amorim reflects a lot of these positive qualities. When he first took over Sporting Lisbon, they were a team that had more of a deep block and they relied upon fast counter-attacks in behind. That's what won the league for them. But naturally, as they improved, teams in Portugal reacted, and it meant that they looked to protect the counter-attacking spaces in behind, which forced Ruben Amorim to problem solve and find new solutions to keep that momentum going. And that was the start of a more proactive Sporting Lisbon team that started to emphasize possession play. And that made more sense as naturally his team had more of the ball in the opposition's half. It's not all been smooth sailing for Amorim. Last season there were accusations that Sporting were too flat, they were too one-dimensional, but if you break down the layers and look at the insight behind why, losing Matheus Nunes at the time they did really killed a lot of the great work that Amorim was building around the team, and they couldn't turn to the market quickly enough to find the perfect replacement for him. Last season was the lowest place finish currently Lisbon have seen under Amorim, but since then they've reacted, and he has adapted around this new look Sporting Lisbon team by accentuating and bringing out this team's best possible qualities. And this is why currently they're on track to potentially win their second league title under Amorim. With the squad being developed around youth players for the future, it makes sense that the club will target a manager that knows how to get the best out of young talents. Since Amorim has taken over, Lisbon have generated around 323 million euros. 7 out of 10 of Lisbon's top transfer departures have fallen under Amorim's spell. Within that time, he has promoted many talents from their academy, including notable names like Ignacio Paulina, Nuno Mendes, Matheus Nunes, plus many more. His ideas around the team and how to tap into talents that already pre-exist has really helped Lisbon kind of close down that duopoly at the top between FC Porto and Benfica. But right now, you guys want to understand how does Amorim's tactics work. As you guys have seen, he uses his back line to break the first lines, which essentially means he wants his defenders to pass through the opposition's first press. You can see the double pivot stay tight to the defense, and that's because Amorim wants to build up through central areas. He wants to build up through the pivot, so encourages his defense to find them. And his defense does this in many different ways. It could be from a straight back three. They can build up from splitting the back three wides. They can also build up by having either one of the fullbacks dropping into making a makeshift back three to create an asymmetrical build-up setup. And most importantly, it can come from the middle centre back in the back three, pushing up into the pivot. And by doing that, essentially it means the midfield players in that pivot can spread wide, and by spreading wide they can play closer alongside the wingbacks. For Amorim, build up through central areas is key, and building up by creating those central overloads helps his ideas work. Doing this means that you can control to your best abilities how the opposition press you, which is key when it comes to opening up passing lines and options to play out from the back. By doing that, the wingbacks can focus on those penetrative runs. They aren't really key when it comes to the build-up phase. This then allows for those quick passing interchanges to find their attacking players. Now, in terms of breaking teams down right now, there is more of a focus on overloads on either side of the field. Amorim now prefers more fluidity in terms of how he uses his attack. He wants them to rotate constantly. They must be comfortable receiving in the half spaces. He wants his players occupied in those areas. On top of that, he wants players that can attack from the wide areas, cut inside, as well as rotate in and out in those positions too. And by constantly probing from left to right, you're hoping to tire the opposition out, create greater spaces between the lines, and by doing that, of course, you're getting your better players in better positions to affect the game. But in terms of the press, of course, he has his ideas, and I must say I see quite a lot of similarities between him and Thomas Tuchel. Long story short, Amorim wants to funnel the opposition out wide when it comes to his press. So this means that he requires intense pressing from the front. We haven't seen something like this since Mount and Kai Havertz were playing in behind a striker. And to make it more effective, naturally, the distances and spaces must be closed down, which means that there's more emphasis on his teams having a narrow shape. He wants them to curve their runs when they press, and by doing that, he wants to funnel the opposition's passes in those wide areas. When the ball finds itself out wide, either one of the wingbacks is required to engage quickly. They must be proactive and they must win that first duel before that ball goes in behind the space. In terms of the pivot's actions, they do two things, but the most important thing is they supplement how his teams play. If they must press aggressively, one of them will leave their line similar to what Jorginho used to do and help press alongside the forwards and the attackers. But if the ball finds itself behind the wingback, which means that one of their defenders must split to engage out wide. One of the pivot players must drop into those spaces vacated by the defender. Now, depending on the quality of the opposition, if it's a smaller opposition, Amorim will use a 3-2-5 build-up, but if it's a better team, he will tend to use a 5-4-1 build-up. The key strategy is about preventing those counter-attacks. It's about stopping as many line-breaking passes as possible. It's about keeping the structure compact. It's about using that high line to squeeze the opposition. So right now, my friends, I'm going to break down how his ideas could work with this current team at Chelsea. Now, I'm going to break down how this would work under Ruben Amorim, starting with the attacking players first. Now, Amorim has used many different attacking lineups during his time at Sporting Lisbon. At times, they've used a strikerless front three. At times, they've used a more classic target man. And currently, this season, they are using an advanced forward in Victor Gyökeres. Based on that, I think Nico Jackson best fits that bill. And it means that Nico is going to have to attack the spaces in behind the defense. He must constantly be moving and looking to receive on the end of passes, because in Amorim's system, strikers tend to be the focal point of goal scoring, so they'll be at the receiving end of much service. I think another thing that helps too is that he needs a striker to be comfortable dropping deep to obviously link up alongside the attacking players beside him and alongside Cole Palmer and Nkunku. These are players that are comfortable playing in the half spaces, in those interior positions, but most importantly, they can receive the ball out wide and cut inside, bringing more dynamism, bringing more threat, and posing more questions towards the opposition. What really helps is that these players in particular must be proficient in their chance creation and their goal scoring too. The whole point is that these players form partnerships and relationships together, and that's why Amorim's system encourages them to be close to each other so they can develop these ideas over time. The midfield players don't really tend to get goals or assists. That's not the role of their midfield. If anything, he prefers a high tactical understanding from his pivot, and the emphasis is on his midfield to manage the distances on and off the ball, which is pretty similar in terms to what we saw between Jorginho and Mateo Kovacic. That would mean that Enzo wouldn't necessarily have all the license in the world to break forward at a whim, and essentially, to simplify things, one of the pivot players, let's say Caicedo, would be tasked with kick-starting the first phase, so he'll drop a bit deeper whilst the other player in the pivot supports the second phase. And I think this is where Enzo Fernandez can help connect the field for us with his switch balls, with his great long-range passing and his ability to play balls over the top. Now, there are moments, of course, for Enzo to carry the ball over distances. And actually, I think the best pivot seen under Amorim was Paulina and Matheus Nunes, with Paulina being that metronome in midfield and Paulina's, incredible and Nunes's line-breaking abilities carrying the ball added so much in that midfield. To move on to the wing-backs, this is where things get very interesting, because I feel like the wing-backs currently under Amorim support more asymmetrical ideas. So to kind of simplify things and make it more basic, Amorim prefers to have one wing-back that attacks more and one wing-back that focuses more on defending. I think it's no surprise why Sporting Lisbon's side Nuno Santos and how he was converted into playing as a wing-back, similar to what we've seen with Ivan Perisic during his time at Inter Milan, and recently with us, Victor Moses playing as a wing-back under Antonio Conte. There's a reason why wing-backs have had great success under Amorim, with their two significant sales being Pedro Porro and Nuno Mendes, and that's because they have the license to attack, because the main ways Amorim's teams attack is through the front three and the wing-backs. That is key here. So in that sense, I look at Mudryk and I think to myself, could he make that Nuno Santos evolution where he'll find himself 1v1 with lots of space to attack into, which could maybe make better use of his pace and his willingness to get forward. But on the other hand, I am scared about his defensive application. Is Mikhailo good enough to defend those lateral spaces? Is he going to be good enough when it comes to winning that first duel to prevent balls going in behind that space? Is he going to get the timing of his movement in the final third right? You know what, if I had to pick one player that probably suits playing there the very best under Amorim, it would be Ian Maatsen. So who knows what happens with Maatsen's future, because if Pochettino does go, is there that possibility that Maatsen comes back into this team, depending on a potential new manager. I think ideally you need that wing back that has that winger capabilities in the final third, but also has the engine and the tactical intelligence to be able to defend. Now moving on to the back three, this is one of the most important parts of Amorim's team based on the responsibilities these guys have in hand. Now I've gone for Disasi in the middle over Thiago Silva because Disasi is more of a box defender. We saw that against Man City, and Amorim likes to have one of these guys in the middle of his back three. Now what helps all our defenders is that they are exceptional at playing out from the back. They're exceptional with their line-breaking passes. They're exceptional moving the ball forward. That's one of their best qualities. They're all very technically secure players, and with the wide centre-backs, they have the added responsibility of using their passing range, something I feel like Pochettino doesn't really use too much of with our defenders this season. There are going to be moments where there are those possibilities to play those balls over the top, to find that winger wide on the left-hand side isolated and get the ball to him as quickly as possible. But when you look at that back three, you can see the passing angles, how they can connect the fields, how most importantly they kickstart the first phase, and how quickly all of them can release the ball as well too. With better ideas, with better methodology, with clearer understanding behind where they must move it, I think our defense in Corwall, Disasi, and I think Fofana on the right hand side would be the best one. And in goal, I've gone for Robert Sanchez, and that's because currently Amorim is tending to prefer the goalkeeper being the important part in the build-up. And that's because as Sporting Lisbon are improving, teams are trying to find solutions to stop them. And one of that is to disrupt their build-up. So without having their defenders go all the way close to goal to kickstart the game, which is going to really suffocate what Lisbon do, there is now the encouragement from Amorim to have his goalkeeper push up to play alongside the defenders to allow the team to be higher up the field. So if your keeper's doing this, they must be secure, they must be confident with the ball. And currently, I just feel like Sanchez is much better at playing out from the back compared to Petrovic. So based on what this team is right now, this is how it could work under Amorim. But right now, I'm going to leave things with my conclusion. I'm going to give you guys some food for thought right here. The reality is for me is that if you want Amorim, it means that you believe in his ideas. You believe his ideas will bring that success here. But to do that, you must commit to him. And committing to him means that you must commit to making some bold squad changes, because our project has been made tough because we focused on signing players first without having an idea for them, or without having a manager for these players. In hindsight, we should have started things slowly, and the phase out should have been even slower than that. So if Amorim comes, will he instantly make us European contenders? I think we must be realistic behind how we can get there. And I think the best way to do that is to make those sacrificial cuts to the team, because if you're signing Amorim to come to the Premier League, his ideas need to be working on a bigger and grander scale. That means that he needs a top-class striker that will convert these chances. You're spending big in that position. That means that you need to sign probably a top-class left wing-back that can support his ideas even more to bring that balance. You probably have to sign another defender. And most importantly, you probably have to sign a world-class ball-playing goalkeeper to really make those ideas achieve at the highest capabilities under Amorim. Because the reality is this: if Amorim comes here, the level is higher. He's competing alongside some of the best managers in Europe. He is competing against a much stronger quality of opposition throughout the league. It's a Premier League that's a different beast. It's more negative. Teams will just defend deep their whole lives. There's greater emphasis on physicality, on pressing. And I think that's reflected behind how Sporting Lisbon play in Europe, where in the Champions League, the best they've come under him is the last of 16, where sadly they came up against Man City. And the Europa League, best place they came in was the quarterfinals against Juventus last season. So we have to be realistic. This isn't necessarily the super tactic that will get them outperforming everyone and get them competing for major trophies on all fronts. But that's not the point of that. The point is he has the success and formula that you can turn towards, but the club needs to back and support the manager, which is something that they have proven they don't want to do here for consecutive years. So it'll be interesting to see how he would possibly adapt here. But one thing I want to say is that under Ruben Amorim, this is a manager that constantly looks to evolve. One thing I'll tell you is that most times during pre-seasons, these are the opportunities that Amorim uses to test out new ideas, to be more creative, because realistically, that's the only time in any season that you have the time to adapt and evolve. And during this time at Sporting Lisbon, there's been evolution behind everything they've done year in, year out. He's adapted extremely well to the constant squad cuts. He's evolved from being a counter-attacking manager to being more effective in possession to having much more efficiency in dominating teams in the opponent's half. And that is the thing with Amorim. He is someone that will keep on improving, keep on evolving, and keep on looking for new solutions. When every new challenge presents itself, Amorim tends to find the right solutions to get past them. So my friends, that is all things behind Ruben Amorim. Let's see what happens with this news. He might not even become our manager, but at least you guys have a better understanding behind who he is, what he does, and what he could potentially bring if he was to come here. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit that like button, keep those notification buttons on because more videos are dropping today. And on that note, I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV. See you guys later with some more videos. Cool.